The 2006 Edmonton Oilers have so many unique storylines to look back on. First, you have to mention the arrival of Chris Kreider, who, although up there in age, was still hoping to play a big role on the team. Then there's Fernando Pisani, who also had a special moment in the final and throughout the entire playoff run, scoring 14 goals and 18 points in 24 games as a mere depth forward. But then there was Edmonton's goaltender, Dwayne Roloson, whose elite goaltending helped the Edmonton Oilers take home the 2006 Stanley Cup. Wait, that's not how it happened. Roloson didn't even play. Why? Well, many Oilers fans can tell you that missing Roloson may have, and probably is the only reason, they lost in the finals that year, as Rolly the goalie was having a monster run that postseason. But in the regular season, many fans actually criticized Roloson and the Oilers organization. When Rolly was acquired at the deadline that year, GM Kevin Lowe would pay a hefty price to bring him in. Edmonton would give division rival Minnesota a first-round pick for the goaltender, who would go 8-7-4 once arriving to the team, and many at the time believed this move didn't make them any better in net. Well, like mentioned, the Oilers would make the playoffs, and Roloson would have a run to remember. In 18 games, Roloson would produce a .927 save percentage and a .233 goals against average, looking like a candidate for the Conn Smythe Trophy. But then, in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals, this happened. This play left millions of Oilers fans at home speechless. They just lost their hot goaltender, who played a big role in getting them to the finals. Roloson would suffer from a third-degree MCL sprain, being forced to miss the remainder of the series. Now, it was up to Edmonton's backup goalie, Ty Conklin, to get the Oilers all the way. But with 33 seconds left in a tied Game 1, Ty Conklin would ultimately ruin the team's chances at taking home the cup. Now, although the Oilers would eventually go the full 7 games, the loss of Dwayne Roloson is eventually what did them in, and Conklin's Game 1 blunder was potentially the deciding factor. Another Canadian team would suffer a similar fate, but before we get into their story, this video is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that allows users to purchase tickets to games, concerts, and live events. SeatGeek makes buying tickets simple as they rate them on a scale from 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Recently, I used SeatGeek to get some sweet tickets to the Flames Devils game on the 26th. If you're also trying to go to an NHL game this season, then before you check out, make sure to use code IDGT to save you $20 off your first purchase. Thanks so much to SeatGeek for the sponsor. Now, let's get back into the video. It seemed that during the 05-06 season, goaltenders were bit by the injury bug hard. When Dominik Hasek's contract would expire, he stated that he wanted to sign with a, quote, Stanley Cup contender, but Hasek would specifically bring up Ottawa as a top option, and seizing the opportunity to potentially sign the legendary netminder, the Senators would ship off Patrick Lalime to St. Louis to make room for Hasek. The Sens at the time looked absolutely loaded. This was right around the time when Mr. All-Star Danny Heatley was consistently scoring 50 goals, and Daniel Alfredsson would lead a core that featured the likes of Jason Spezza, Zdeno Chara, and Wade Redden. And after successfully signing Hasek to a one-year deal, the Senators looked poised to compete for a Stanley Cup. But as we just talked about, we obviously know that the Senators failed to win it all that year. And to explain why, we need to take a look at the 2006 Winter Olympics. During the regular season, Hasek was performing relatively well, as he would surpass the 300 career win mark, while ranking second in the entire league in both goals against average and save percentage. And thanks to his continued great play, he would be chosen to represent the Czech Republic in that year's Winter Olympics. The Czech Republic was set to face off against Germany to start the qualifying round, but just 9 minutes into the game, Hasek would go down trying to make a save. He would injure his muscle in his right leg, being forced to leave the game. The injury was a major blow to both the Czech team and for the Senators, as now they were at risk of losing Hasek for the remainder of the year. As weeks went on and the season went deeper, there were still rumors that Hasek could return come playoff time, but the playoffs came and Hasek was still nowhere to be found. And because of this, a dominant Ottawa team potentially missed their best opportunity to win a cup, as despite not having Hasek, the team would still make it to the second round, but would ultimately fall short, losing to the Sabres in 5 games. To make matters even worse for Ottawa, once Hasek looked able to return, his 1-year contract he signed that season would come to an end, and instead of sticking around in Ottawa, Hasek would return to Detroit. This will forever be a major what-if moment in Senators franchise history, as they could have won a Stanley Cup if Hasek never went down. To this day, some Montreal fans will still cringe when mentioning the name Kris Kreider, and to understand why, we need to go back. Habs goaltender Carey Price was the backbone of the franchise and looked to rebound after a not-so-great 2012-13 season, which saw Price win 18 of his first 28 starts, ending the year going 2 for 6, giving up 27 goals. It also didn't help that despite taking his Canadiens to the Stanley Cup playoffs, that in Game 4 against Ottawa in Round 1, Price would suffer from a pulled groin injury, taking him out of the series, thus causing Montreal to lose against Ottawa in 7 games. But the 13-14 season would be when Price would return to form, this time recording 34 wins, racking up a .927 save percentage and a .233 goals against average. This was also in a full season. The 12-13 season featured a lockout, mind you. Regardless, that year's Canadiens team looked poised to get out of the first round, and that they did. Price would lead the team to their second 100-point season since the 07-08 season, and would bulldoze through Tampa in round 1 with a sweep, and then would upset their rivals in Boston 4-2. This would pin Montreal against the New York Rangers, whose goaltender Henrik Lundqvist was also one of the best in the league, trying to win his first Stanley Cup. This series would be a battle, so everyone thought, as come Game 1, when the Rangers would be up 2-0 in the second, Kris Kreider would be skating towards the net, and the rest is history.
Kris Kreider has shown that he's not afraid at all to head for the net, and Carey Price looks hurt. And his skates went right into Price.
For the second year in a row, Price would suffer from an untimely injury in the midst of a playoff run, once again being forced to miss out on the remainder of the series. The Rangers would win the series, but would ultimately fall short once reaching the Stanley Cup final. Replacing Price for the rest of that series was Dustin Tokarski. Despite his efforts, he just wasn't good enough or prepared enough to take on the high-powered Rangers offense. Luckily for Price, he would continue his regular season success the following season, taking home almost every major award, including the Vezina and Hart Trophy. But many fans have to wonder what Montreal could have done that year if Carey Price were to never get hurt. Another goalie who had a bounce-back season was legendary Oilers goaltender Grant Fuhr. Although the moment we'll be talking about saw Fuhr look, quote, out of shape and past his prime. After mentoring Dominik Hasek in Buffalo, Fuhr would get shipped off to LA to reunite with Wayne Gretzky, and he would struggle. His total stats from his stints in both Buffalo and LA have Grant showcasing a .403 goals against average and a .873 save percentage. He was also 32 years old, so many believed that Fuhr's age might have caught up with him, but the following off-season, he would sign with the St. Louis Blues, joining a stacked core that featured Brett Hull, Al McGinnis, Chris Pronger, and eventually Gretzky, and Fuhr's numbers would reach career highs as he would tally a .903 save percentage and a .287 goals against average, playing in a record-setting 76 straight games with the St. Louis Blues. His impressive play, combined with the all-around star-studded Blues roster, allowed the team to make the playoffs. The Blues' first-round opponents would be the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this was a big moment for the core, and it would also be the moment where Nick Kypreos would become public enemy number 1 in St. Louis.
And it comes to Fuhr. Hold it. Fuhr got nailed by Nick Kypreos, and that's going to draw a crowd. It was after the save was made. Fuhr was down on his knees.
He's not going to make it to the dressing room.
Now, this can be argued that it's not really his fault, as some people believe the injury would have never happened if Pronger never shoved Nick, but regardless, the hit caused Fuhr to go down with an injury, missing the remainder of the playoffs. The Blues would still defeat Toronto, and their second round opponent would be the Detroit Red Wings. Even without Fuhr in net, the Blues managed to stay competitive. They would keep things close all the way to Game 7, where both teams managed to go to double overtime, scoreless. The goaltender who had to fill in for Fuhr was John Casey, who did relatively well for St. Louis up to this point. He was about to make history, just not the good kind. Red Wings Steve Yzerman would carry the puck up towards the blue line and, well, just play the clip.
Yzerman moving, blue line chance. Score! Steve Yzerman! Detroit wins!
St. Louis lost perhaps their greatest chance at a Stanley Cup due to a terrible injury and a botched play. Oh yeah, the person who allowed Yzerman to steal the puck was Fuhr's longtime teammate, the Great One. This last moment is unique, as the injured player wasn't on the team that got their cup chances lost. In 2019, the new kids on the block, the Vegas Golden Knights, were fresh off their inaugural season where they shockingly made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. And despite falling short, their goal was to make it back to the big game. They would once again dominate the regular season and would make the playoffs in hopes of another series win. But who they were facing, they were very familiar with already. Their division rivals in San Jose were also hoping to return to the finals, and it showed. They would make big moves to acquire Evander Kane and bring in one of the best defensemen in hockey, Erik Karlsson, risking it all for a shot at the cup. Both teams already didn't like each other, with a rivalry brewing between Kane and Reeves, but with Vegas having a commanding 3-1 series lead, it seemed pretty much over, until San Jose tied things up. Game 7 would take place in the Shark Tank in San Jose, and, well, Vegas would go up and take a 3-0 lead that night. Then, a face-off would occur in Vegas' zone, where Cody Eakin would take down longtime Shark Joe Pavelski pretty hard, causing him to leave the game. This play was so bad that the refs deemed it worthy of a 5-minute major. This was now the Sharks' best chance to come back and tie the game. Rallying around Logan Couture and playing for Joe Pavelski, the Sharks would create one of the best feel-good moments in recent memory.
Sends it back across the score! That took 6 seconds, and the Sharks are on the ball. Carlson along, Risha takes goal! And the Sharks are within 1! Back to Burns, swings it back across the tip, and shoots goal! Couture ties the game! Point, works his way in, Quebec walks it in, fires, goal! And the Sharks have taken the lead!
Although Vegas would tie it up in overtime, Sharks Barclay Goodrow would score the dagger, ousting Vegas in the first round, making their fans experience their first heartbreak. Unfortunately, a series and a hand pass later, the Sharks would lose in the Western Conference Final to the eventual champions in St. Louis. But this may have been one of the few unique times where an injury to the opposing team's player cost a team their shot at the Stanley Cup. But none of that would have been possible without Logan Couture, who arguably earned his captaincy that night, coming up clutch in the game's biggest moment.
Logan Couture turns around, he says to the bench, that's one. They've got 4 minutes and 54 seconds left.